Hi everyone, welcome back to part 3 of our series on changes in lean material management. And this topic is called thinking of material handling as waste, or as material management as waste. And that's been a big change in terms of ways of thinking about it, at least that I remember. You know, they say if you grew up in the 60s and remember it, you weren't really there. So, but I remember pretty clearly in the 90s our attitude about material handling, and that was that it's pretty much 100% pure, unadulterated muda, right? And whatever we could do to reduce material handling, that was reducing overhead, and that was a good thing to try to do. And I also remember that back in those days, that was one of the main reasons that we were excited or interested in this idea of Kanban. And I remember the president of our company was asked a question, by the way. The question was, how do I know what to put into Kanban versus what I need to deliver, via a sequential delivery or in small quantities or kitting? And he said, in my way of thinking, it is anything you use more often than every couple weeks should be in Kanban. Really? We said, well, that sounds like a lot. I mean, why do you say that? And he said, because it's easier. Kanban is much easier to manage and it reduces your need for handling. So you can see the thinking at that time was any kind of material handling is a waste that we need to strategize to get rid of. And down in the report here on this page, you'll see a list of, kind of strategies for reducing material handling. But typically it came down to larger quantities of material so you didn't have to handle it as often or touch it as often, or strategies for delivering material directly from a supplier to the point of use. You'll still see this in some of the older lean books, is staging or storing material at the point of use and reducing the intermediate storage locations or reducing touches. So that was really kind of a big deal. What has changed? Well, one thing that was missing from that whole analysis of material handling as waste was this idea of, number one, what impact does that have? Does our reduction of material handling strategy have on operators? Because for every material handler, I've got more than one operator, most likely, right? It's not a one-to-one relationship. I have a lot more people building the product, hopefully, than I have delivering the material. So am I saving material handling time on one side and impacting in a negative way the people doing the work? And the answer is going to be clearly yes, because back in those days, back in the 90s, our strategy, our vision was any product, any day. And the way we were going to achieve that flexibility was to have everything that the operator could need, every part that's required in front of them, like in a Kanban system. So here comes a Model X, but all the components and parts I need are in front of me, so I just reach out and I pick them. The problem with that is severalfold. One of the problems with that is space. So as the number of models increases, the number of items increases. We have a client who told us that over the last 10 years, the number of components they have to manage on the factory floor has doubled, partly because of new models, partly because of more options. So double the number of parts. So just the physical space is constrained, right? We don't have space for all these bins. The other reason, though, is this. When you ask someone to choose, ask an operator to choose, that time it takes to select those parts is taking away from time that they could be using to build the products. So almost without a doubt, we're impacting operator productivity when we try to make them the part pickers, essentially, by having all the parts in front of them. So keeping that in mind, the biggest change I've seen is really looking at the total cost of material handling and building the product. So the total system cost, which includes the people doing the work, right, building the products, factor that in. And definitely there's a trend of moving more and more to kind of like the surgical approach. Like in the old days, I don't know how long ago, but maybe 100 years ago, a surgeon in a surgical suite would be picking his or her own parts from a tray, right? I need a scalpel, and that surgeon would be looking for it. And what they went to was having an assistant, and the surgeon basically just says scalpel and holds out his hand, and the instrument is put into the hand. So that's kind of the philosophy we want to move towards in manufacturing, where the operator needs a part. Don't make them search for it. Definitely don't make them go walk for it, but don't make them search for it. Give it to them directly, and they can use it just like in a surgical suite. So how do we do that? Well, the concept which we're going to talk about in this series is called just-in-time kitting or sequential delivery. There are a lot of different terms, but the idea is give the operator exactly what they need. Now, does this mean more handling? For sure, yes, it does. More kitting, more selection, but it doesn't happen in front of the operator. It happens offline, right? And then we give the surgeon/operator exactly what they need. Now, as I just said a second ago, the overall cost should be positive, by doing this. But it can involve more material handling, and this is where you're going to run into sometimes management challenges when you suggest we need more material handlers. So you need to do a thorough analysis and show and justify the reason why you want to do this. But basically, the reasons are threefold. Number one, you're going to have less space consumed. And if you're constrained for space, that's going to be a huge help. Getting rid of all these Kanban bins in the most extreme case and just delivering a small set of parts for a single unit. So space. Number two, for sure, operator productivity is going to be better. How could it not be better when you give people exactly what they need so they can continue to add value as opposed to having to do essentially some online material handling? And the third big benefit is going to be you're reducing the possibility of errors in part selection. Picking the wrong part, especially if you have items that are very similar, it's very easy to reach out and take the wrong part. Now, I know there are technologies to try to address that, pick-to-light systems, etc. But why introduce that level of complexity if you don't need to, right? Just give people exactly what they need. It's the right stuff, and they can just focus on adding value. So with that, I'll leave you there, but I think that's pretty convincing. You just need to build the case because management most likely is going to push back because they came to maturity in their business back in the 90s, and they probably have some of this old school thinking that material handling is just waste and we don't want to add any more of it. So you're going to have to build that case. All right, see you at the next one, at the next topic, topic 4.